You're listening to Tavern Sports Radio Network.
Show me the money! Show me the money!
Welcome to the 42nd episode of the Show Me the Money podcast, brought to you by Tavern Sports. We got a new face with us this week. John, welcome in, man.
Thanks, man. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Let's look at our lock standings. I got myself at 2-2-1, Tyler's at 3-1, so he's ahead of me currently, and then Clark coming for my title at 4-1. So Clark's currently in the lead. Parker, of course, he's been away with work and everything, so kind of hard to get him around, and that's okay. We miss you, buddy. And then Cole, another loser, 1-3. John, you got to be better than Cole, man. I mean, this is an all-time skid.
Do our best.
If we seem a little low energy, we already recorded the first 10 minutes of this podcast once, so we're going to try to give the same energy, but I doubt we get it. Let's start with NL Rookie of the Year. Skeens is lighting the world on fire, minus 220. I mean, the kids can seem to do no wrong. There's people that know more baseball than any of us that are calling him a top 10 pitcher already. Sounds a little bit like, what have you done for me lately? Kind of just waving off the old heads and the established guys for the new shiny toy, but the kid looks good. Second in the NL Rookie of the Year is Tyler's guy in the blue pinstripes, Shota Imanaga for the Cubs. Tyler, how's Imanaga been looking?
Not great recently. Been getting shelled a little bit more than he was at the beginning. Guys have started to see his stuff a little more. Baseball is so analytics driven that guys are starting to figure out what he's throwing, how he's throwing it, where he kind of likes to favor it. But he definitely could still kind of make a push for this. He was the favorite early on and for quite a while. So there's a chance that if he can get back on his horse like he was at the beginning of the season, we could see him make a push for the favorite again. But right now, Paul Skeens is just dominant. So I think he's going to remain that as the NL Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and then, I mean, I just threw Mason Wynn in here because he's a Redbird. He's at plus 3,000. If I remember correctly, when I was doing the look for the odds, he's either 5th or 6th.
Yeah, no thank you on Mason Wynn for me. It's definitely going to be Skeens or Imanaga, and the tides have turned Skeens' way quite a bit. Down from plus 1,600, I believe, when he debuted. Real quick, like Josh said, we already ran through this and had some technical difficulties, so that sucks. But division winner odds right now, the AL East is the Yankees are minus 320 right now, with the Orioles at plus 220. Josh, you said the Orioles are only 2 games out on that one?
Yes.
So AL East is still technically a tight race, but the sports books are heavily favoring the Yankees.
John, what are the books in New York?
Yeah, what does the book in New York say?
I got the Yankees at minus 265.
Better in New York again.
That's interesting. As we're coming to find out,
Tyler, are you locked into a state?
I'm in Iowa. I'm locked into Iowa.
Okay, see, because I'm locked in on like at large. Like I'm not locked into a state.
Okay, I'm locked in as these. I'm giving Iowa odds. John has New York, which differ greatly, and we can get into that a little more here in just a little bit. So it's interesting. The Yankees only 2 games ahead, and minus 320 to 265, depending on your region. And the Orioles plus 220 for me, and I'm sure even a better price for John up in New York. So the AL Central, Cleveland Guardians, one of the better teams in baseball right now, have been super hot. They're minus 290.
That's honestly a great number. I mean, they're 9 games up.
Yeah, 290. I mean, if you find a couple other teams you like, 290 wouldn't be a terrible parlay piece. So out in the West, the Seattle Mariners are minus 175 as the favorite, with the Houston Astros at plus 200 on my books. How many games back are the Stros, Josh?
4.5.
4.5. So I think that's a little interesting price wise. If you think the Astros can kind of right the ship from the beginning of the season woes and have that veteran presence lead them down the stretch, plus 200 is a phenomenal price point for that, but a little bit of work to do there. Getting into the NL side, the NL East, to be exact, the Phillies are minus 370, whereas the Braves are plus 290. I believe they have a 6.5 or 7.5 lead right now.
7.5.
7.5. Little bit. It's insane that their price points at minus 370 with a less of a lead than the Guardians have in the AL, and they're only at minus 290. So
I think that just comes with like youth of the Guardians. They don't think they're going to be able to hold on, possibly.
I mean, potentially long season, still a lot of baseball to go. In the NL Central, the Milwaukee Brewers are minus 290 to win. The Redbirds are plus 480, and the Cubs are plus 1,000. So in the first time we ran through this, guys, we were talking about this. I am a Cubs fan as well as John. John being up in New York, though, he actually has the Cubs at plus 1,800. So the books are doing a little bit of manipulating, knowing that in Iowa, there's a bunch more Cubs fans that are going to be willing to put tickets out there than there is out in New York. So priced by region, kind of extreme here. Plus 800 difference is a little ridiculous. So might be a little more tempting at plus 1,800, but I personally won't take them at plus 1,000 and look at that ticket till September and be upset by it. And then I think we can all agree the NL West you're absolutely priced out of, as the Dodgers are the favorite at minus 4,500.
And the craziest thing about that, Tyler, they have an 8-game lead. The Guardians' lead is larger, and you can get the Guardians at minus 290.
Yes, the Dodgers and the Guardians are totally different teams.
I did throw together a little parlay. If you want to do the Phillies, who are currently leading, and their nearest competitor is the hampered Braves after the Acuna injury earlier in the year, the Guardians, who are 9 games up, the Braves, who are in a fairly weak NL Central by the NL Central standards.
You mean the Brewers?
Yeah, who did I say? I'm sorry.
You said Braves.
Yeah, the Brewers in the Central at minus 290, and then the Yankees. You can get that 4-leg parlay at plus 201. And if you're an Orioles believer and swap them out for the Yankees, you can get plus 635.
So, I mean, that's a tasty little parlay. If you want to sweat on a future, maybe you become a deposit boy during college football season, and that brings you back to life.
I'm a deposit boy right now. My account's empty.
Standing at zeros, never a number you want to see.
I haven't been betting, so.
Well, let's switch over here to the Rocket Mortgage Classic up in Detroit this week. A smaller, not necessarily a smaller field, but less star power in the field this week. Big signature event last week, came down to a playoff between Scotty and Tom Kim. Scotty wins that on the first playoff hole. Interesting enough, coming down on 18, Scotty needed to make a putt to win, and right when he stepped up to it, 6 protesters run out onto the 18th green with smoke grenades. Don't really know exactly what they were protesting, but the police ended up handling that one rather quickly, and they actually had to move the hole away from some of that smoke and debris that the protesters brought onto the green. So the playoff hole played differently than the actual 18th hole or the 72nd hole that they just got done playing.
To be honest with you, I kind of like that.
I mean, it's interesting, but I kind of feel a little bit for Tom Kim. He did better than Scotty did on 18, and then turned around and fucking bogeyed 18 again in the playoff, and he ended up in a bunker they moved the pin closer to the right side, and Tom Kim knew he had to attack it and ended up in a bunker there. So, I mean, high risk, high reward situation for him. But Scotty, they let him lurk around, and he just came out and snatched it. So, 6 wins before the month of July started. Will not be going for 7 as he's out of this field this week.
It's a
A lot of
neutered
other
field.
yeah, no Scotty, no Morikawa,
No
no
Ludwig, no
yeah,
Rory.
yeah, a lot of big names sitting this one out, but some of these guys that are playing this week have been going like 7 weeks in a row. One of those guys, Tom Kim, Batia, all of these dudes are just fucking Ironmans out here right now. Have just been playing week in, week out, and have been playing pretty good. So, John, let's get you involved here, buddy. Who do you like in the Rocket Mortgage this week?
I gotta say, I like Batia. I mean, kid came out, looked great at Pinehurst. Believe he got a top 5 finish last week. I think he's going to keep up a high level of play this week. I actually have him as my lock of the week for a top 10 finish. In New York here, I got him at plus 240 top 10, plus 450 top 5. And if you want to take a flyer on the kid to win the thing, I got him at plus 2,000.
What can you get him at for top 20?
Have not checked. Too optimistic.
I was going to say, in a lock of the week situation where we're looking for winners, if you can get him in the right price range at top 20 and secure yourself a win, that's not a bad situation to be in. But you were right.
You get him at minus 110. You can lock that top 20, including ties.
It's a good price point.
I'm not going to tell you can't lock the top 10, but
You know what?
Hey.
You know what? We here in my household, we like to put our nuts on the table. We're gonna keep Batia here at top 10.
all
like
right.
it.
I like it.
But we did mention like he's been playing extremely well throughout the last couple of weeks. 18 under and T5 last week. So this was a fucking stacked leaderboard last week. Hopefully we get something similar this week. I don't think the course is going to play as friendly as the Travelers did last week with a winning score of 22 under. But again, a lot of the lines are predicting these guys to shoot super, super low this week. So it's going to be interesting to see our defending champion is Ricky Fowler in this one. So, Josh, do you have any people you like to go top 20, top 10? Anybody you're personally writing here?
I've always liked Cam Young. You know, he's second favorite to Tom Kim this week. He could definitely be worth something. I also saw Will Zalatoris. You can get him at plus 550 to win it all. I think that's pretty good money for Will. He's always lurking in a neutered field. Maybe he has a chance out something, maybe not. I mean, I don't think he's going to miss the cut, but I would fade Tom Kim this week. I think after getting as close as he did last week, I think he may have a rough go of it this week. He's been playing good, but anyone that plays good has to fall off eventually.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to say about like a hard fought loss and then not coming out and performing the best the next week. Interesting enough here, I was about to say, I don't think there's a cut at this event, but there is. Batia did not make the cut last year, so that could potentially be why his price is so high. The cut line was at 1 under that was final scores was 1 under. I don't know exactly what the cut line was at last year, but it is worth to mention that the winning score was 24 under, and it was in a playoff. It was a 3-way tie between Adam Hadwin, Morikawa, and Fowler to get this into a playoff. So a couple guys could really, really go low here. Josh, you mentioned Cam Young. He putted out of his mind last weekend, having a round of 13 under with 2 eagles, and he did that even parring one of the par 5s. So you think he's going to continue his hot hand here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he is or not. I'm just a Cam Young guy. I just think he's a good ball player. But You know who you can't bet to make or miss the cut? The young gun, the next Tiger Woods himself, Miles Russell makes his debut on the tour this week. Only 15 years old.
Yeah, 15 years old, it's interesting. Like he's playing in a top event. They have to have some sort of line out there for him somewhere.
There's
And I'm
there's
sure
top 20s, top 10s, top 5s, and a winner, but there's no make or miss cut. That's the one I was really curious in. But like I said, I mean there are lines. You can get them at plus 1200 to make top 20. And again, this is pre first shot, so this is all including ties. Plus 1200 on top 20, plus 3100 on top 10, plus 6,000 on a tie. And for the kid to come out and let his thing hang the first time on tour, the first 72 holes as a pro, plus 100,000.
well, is he truly the plus 100,000 is crazy. For everybody out there listening that's not good at math, put $1 on the kid, and he's going to go out there and win you
A grand.
a grand. So if you're looking for that, I mean, go ahead and go for it. But what I was getting at was
Might throw a tenner on there.
it's interesting to see how books play this. It's a 15-year-old. So they're
I'm
probably not
surprised you're allowed to bet on him personally.
well, the thing is, they have to have a line out there for him because if he's going to participate and play with the adults, you got to be able to bet on him like the adults.
But you could also just edit everything to say minus him.
You could, you certainly could. However, I kind of like to see it. I personally won't have anything on him. I'm actually looking for him in a 3-ball bet to see if his threesome's involved in it. Do we have his tee time?
I don't see him anywhere.
Yeah. So no 3-ball bet for old Miles Russell, but would have been interesting to see what he was priced at for that. There are a couple good 3-ball rotations going on for this week. It's going to be interesting to see how the pairs play together. But it sucks we're not going to be able to slap a little bit down on him in that one. Josh, you mentioned though Tom Kim to not make the cut. You think there's a
No,
chance
I think he'll make the cut. I just think you should fade him overall on the weekend.
Gotcha.
But plus 290 to not make the cut. I don't think you go from going 24 down, 21 down, something like that last weekend to
22.
another court 22 down to a course that also plays super loose and lets people go real low and don't go low again. I mean, you're obviously anything can happen. You can come out and fucking pull a hammy on his first drive. I don't know, but
yeah. Some of the guys I'm going to be looking at in this tournament are definitely going to be the Kims, the Youngs, the Batias, but personally, I'm super pissed off at Will Zalatoris last week. The one time I bet on him on the softest course they play all year, he absolutely dribbled down his leg and couldn't fucking make a putt. Somebody I do like though, Ricky, the former champion, is at plus 5,500. And then Big Bob McIntyre at plus 3,500. He's been playing well recently as well. I was looking for Adam Hadwin, the runner-up from last year. He is also out of this field. So going to be a little interesting. Some of the top 10s, top 5s that I really like, though, I'm going to personally take Batia in the top 10 and parlay that with Kim in the top 10. No, I'm not, because this sports book won't let me do it. But if you can find a book that would let you do it, both of them are plus odds right now to finish the top 10 because they don't have much experience on this course. Like I said, Batia missing the cut last year here. But he's plus 360 to go top 5. So I really do like the numbers on him like John does. But some of the big name guys that I really like are out. However,
I think in a neutered field like this, there's a lot of value to be had in top 10 bets.
Well, how about I do you one better? Ricky Fowler plus 170 to go top 20. He won the fucking thing last year, and he's plus 170. He's not playing his best golf by any means, but like the dude can go low here.
You can get him at plus 360 top 10.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't need to be super greedy here. I'll take him at the plus 170 to go top 20 and be smiling throughout the week watching him on that one. So gonna be interesting to see there some soft lines. It'll be interesting to see how that changes a little bit throughout the tournament and see if anybody goes super, super low here. Real quick in a 3-ball, and then we can move on, guys. I'm kind of liking a Zalatoris against Fowler and Cam Davis to win his matchup tomorrow. Parlaying that up with Batia, who's not even the favorite in his group. Minwoo Lee is the favorite in that group. Batia's plus 175 tomorrow for his 3-ball. And I will pair him up with, if I can find Tom Kim anywhere.
He was like towards the middle.
He's plus 140 going against Cam Young and Big Bob. But if you go Zalatoris, even though he said he pissed me off last week, I think he can win his group. Fowler could challenge him. But Zalatoris, Batia, and Tom Kim, 3-leg parlay plus 1550. So some good value there on just a short little 3-legger, so you can come out of the gates hot. But let's
get off the PGA.
Yeah, let's wrap up the NHL season as a whole here. Florida comes back to win in Game 7, not in the comeback sense of in the game, but in the series, they went up 3-0, lose 3 straight, goes to Game 7, and Florida pulls it out at home. It was a 2-1 game, really kind of a tight, cagey affair. Stuart Skinner, we said this entire time, I didn't think he could pull the Oilers, the 4 straight wins. He let in a pretty soft goal in Game 7, which ended up being the difference maker. So Florida wins. However, they do not bring home the Conn Smythe Trophy. Connor McDavid brings that home after beating the Great One's assist record in the play. Well, for a single season playoff. Interesting, Josh. I know you had some feelings about Connor McDavid winning the Conn Smythe here.
Yeah, I mean, no shade to the kid. He broke the Great One's record. If you are breaking Gretzky's record in anything, you're doing great things. But your team didn't win. And in 2 of the 3 games that your team actually won in the series, you put up 0 points. You can't be the greatest goal scorer of the generation. You can't be the greatest point getter of a generation and put up 0
I gotta correct you. 2 out of the 3 games that his team won, he put up 4 points in each of them. But the last 2 games of the series, Game 6, Game 7, he put up 0.
It was 4, a no-show.
Yeah, 4 and 5 though. He put up 8 points combined in those 2 games.
I thought it was yeah, you're right. Sorry, my bad. You're right. But before, when they were losing, Game 1 and 2, he didn't really have many points either. Correct.
Correct. He was doing all right.
You had a great playoffs, and I get it's the playoff MVP trophy. Like that's how they look at it. They don't look at it as a final MVP trophy. But you didn't show up in the big games. You didn't show up you showed up in 2 of the last 7 games. If you show up in 1 more of those games, you probably win the series.
You made an interesting point about how it is for the entire playoffs. I still think Bobrovsky could have won that. Yes, he gave up 5 and got yanked in Game 4. Yes, he gave up 4 in Game 5. But for the entire playoffs, Sergei Bobrovsky, there was none better. Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily feel like he got robbed. I know some people certainly do. But again, to your point, Connor McDavid setting the all-time single playoff record for assist says something. So it has been a great hockey season. There were 1,400 games played exactly. It was the longest hockey season, and in my opinion, one of the best. So it is time to put her to bed, and we will see her again next year. She will be missed. But let's get into this weekend's probably the biggest event in sports this weekend, UFC 303. John, we brought you in here, big UFC guy, kind of like myself. I think I would reach over and give you the title of being a little bit more knowledgeable about the UFC than myself. However, no Connor, no Chandler on this card. We are Pereira and Prohaskovic 2. How do you feel? Are we ever seeing McGregor get to the octagon again?
I think we'll see McGregor back. To be honest, I wasn't even looking forward to that fight. I don't think there's anything in it for either side, Chandler or McGregor, other than it's a payday for Michael Chandler. But no, I think we see Connor back, to be honest, when he's good and ready. I hear there's some scrambling trying to make up a pay-per-view for Connor specifically. And it's just hard, the guy's not in any shape to be fighting for a title and he wants to be a headliner. So to find a spot for him between now and the end of the year, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, still going to be a heavy Irish crowd this week with Ian Gary being on the main card. I know a lot of people were wanting their refunds from this. This was a high ticket price event. And then for McGregor to back out at the beginning of the month due to injury, Michael Chandler at first was okay with it. And then now he's kind of came out and ran his mouth and talked his shit a little bit about it. So interesting to see if we're going to ever get these two in the octagon together. I don't fault Michael Chandler, though. He could have probably had 2 or 3 fights by now waiting on McGregor.
He could have. If my memory serves me, I don't think he's fought since November of 2022. That was the Dustin Poirier fight. I guess I don't know what's next for Michael Chandler. I get why he's holding out, why he wants the Connor fight. I mean, that's the big payday fight that everybody wants. So
somebody out there did the math, and it's the equivalent of him fighting like 8 to 10 times to make what he would make in one Connor fight. So I don't blame him. But again, you're missing years out of your prime. You're missing years where you're a headline guy waiting for something that may never manifest at all. I personally like watching Michael Chandler and would love to see him get back into the octagon.
Yeah.
However, not here this week. So let's dive into who actually is stepping into the cage this week. John, do you want to lead us off with the prelims?
Yeah, sure. We'll start with the early prelims. The one I have circled is Jillian Robertson versus Michelle Waterson Gomez. Not to bore everybody, we don't need to get into all the early prelims, but Michelle Waterson Gomez, I mean, she's on a 4-fight skid. She's at a tremendous size disadvantage. I believe Jillian Robertson has a reach advantage. I think she's 2 or 3 inches taller, 9 years younger. Give me Jillian Robertson at minus 185 as a parlay piece.
I like it. And that's all you had for the early prelims, correct?
That's all I had for the early prelims. No, I mean, like you said, Ray Surihara, I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. I think he's coming off of what's the not the Ultimate Fighter, the other one. Not Dana White's Contender Series, not the Ultimate Fighter. Road to the UFC, that's what it is. Yep. I believe he won season 2, so he's making his UFC debut. That should be a good fight, but again, don't know enough about these fighters to really make an informed decision here.
So worth mentioning that Suiara here in a debut fight is minus 520. So almost priced out of it here unless you are parlay piecing it. But I don't know if you want to risk a minus 500 in your parlay on a debut. Interesting there. I mean, go ahead and do what you want with it. The books certainly think he's going to handedly win this one. But I don't know if it's worth risking your parlay over. I personally am maybe priced out of that fight, even though I do think that Suihara is going to win it. But we'll see. I'm going to take us back just a little bit. Ricky Simone and Oliveira are fighting on the first fight of this prelim card. Simone is minus 245. He, however, is coming in on a 2-fight losing streak where he's been knocked out. A little bit older of a guy here. A lot of people are wondering, is his chin gone? Like Oliveira, who he's fighting, this is Vinicius Oliveira for everybody out there. Definitely not Charles. But Vinicius Oliveira, I don't have a whole lot on him, whereas on Simone at minus 245, I don't know if I can trust a minus 245 guy coming in on a 2-fight losing streak that's been knocked out twice.
Yeah, no, I see that. One thing with Simone is you mentioned he's coming off that 2-fight skid where he's been knocked out. Both of those losses have aged incredibly well. One was to Song Yadong. I think he got the KO finish. He's a top 8 guy, if my memory serves me. And then Mario Batista, he's an up and coming killer in the bantamweight division. So I don't fault Simone too bad. I haven't seen Oliveira fight since he debuted on Dana White's Contender Series. But that's another one that's toss up for me. I think Oliveira is good value, but that's another one where I'm kind of hesitant to make a pick there.
Yeah, it's worth noting that Oliveira is 3 years younger. He is 3 inches taller, but only has an 1.5 inch reach advantage here. So I don't know. It's definitely something that if you're looking for somebody to play as a higher underdog, I think there's decent value on Oliveira here, and hoping that Simone walks into, a big shot and that chin falters for him again. Another interesting fight. We go from bantamweight all the way up to heavyweight here. Andre Arlovsky is going against Martin Buday. Andre Arlovsky, 34-23-0 with 2 no contests. Martin Buday, 13-2-0 in his career. Arlovsky has had a great career, a storied career, but he is 45. He is a little bit shorter. He's outweighed, but he does not suffer a reach disadvantage here. They are equal in that category. Buday is minus 295 here. It's a good test for Martin Buday coming in against Andre Arlovsky. I'm personally going to give it to Buday as a minus 295 favorite, potentially in a parlay piece here. But just the age, Arlovsky's weathered. I don't see him fighting at this age to make another push for a championship. So he's kind of put himself in the position in his career to be one of those roadblock guys that you have to get through and get that win under your belt to move up in the rankings. So I don't know if you have any other opinions on him, but that's what I'm going with in this one.
No, I like Buday as a parlay piece. I have him at minus 265. Heavyweight's one of those divisions. I mean, all it takes is one shot, right? Those guys are going to come out and swing for the fences. Usually their cardio's dog shit. Like the over-under on those is usually half a round. I like Buday to get the finish here.
Yeah, the lines aren't out for this yet, as we are doing this show a little bit earlier in the week. But that's a fight that I would take to not go the distance either. So I don't think that one sees the scorecards. But let's keep moving on. Who else do you want to talk about here, John? Who else you got on your card?
I like Joe Pyfer and Marc-Andre Barriault. Joe Pyfer's coming off the 1-fight skid. He had the disappointing loss against Jack Hermanson. Let's be honest. Andre Barriault is a lamb for the UFC here. Joe Pyfer is this up-and-coming prospect from Philadelphia. Huge fan base, super exciting, tons of first-round finishes. I think we see him get back on track. He's only a minus 300 favorite, so not a ton of value. But if you're looking for another parlay piece, I like Joe Pyfer.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to ride you with Joe Pyfer on this one. Maybe pairing him up with Martin Buday. That gets you for a 2-legger at minus 133 with some heavier favorites. So maybe a little 2-legger that you can slap a little bit more juice on and make some money on that one. Where do you want to lead us to next, John?
Well, back to Joe Pfeiffer. One thing to make this a little interesting. I know we're recording this on Wednesday. The lines aren't out yet, but it's worth noting that Marc-Andre Barrialt's only been finished one time in his career by knockout. Pfeiffer's a knockout artist. I like the Joe Pfeiffer double chance taken by KO, taken by decision. I think you're going to see really good value on Joe Pfeiffer by decision. That wouldn't be, in my opinion, that's not a bad bet. I don't know how you feel about double chances, Tyler, but UFC usually I look at it like a path to victory sort of thing, and I tend to ride a lot of double chances.
So I actually had a double chance save me in a parlay. Actually, it wasn't a double chance; it was a decision no bet. Last week that saved me. So if you're actually, kind of iffy on a fight, I don't mind the double chance lines at all. You're giving up some value, but if you want to just secure a win, then I'm all for it. Right. So I don't hate the double chance plays at all here. So I like that as well with you. I was looking on another book to see if they had prop lines out yet, and they are not. So gonna have to wait on some of those, but the double chance, depending on the price, could be worth it. Keep steering us down this little rabbit hole, John. Where you want to go to next?
All right, now I'm going to the main card. So let's talk about the first bout. Ian Gary versus Michael Venom Page. Tyler, what are your thoughts here?
Okay, I love MVP. I really do. The movement, it just, I don't know. He's like the snake, and I'm the fucking snake charmer. I'm just gonna sit there and dance and watch this dude move through the octagon all fucking night long. However, we talked about this a little bit before we got on air. Ian Gary, he's fucking super nerdy, disciplined guy. He's coming out of the Contender Series. He's had a couple fights. Or no, sorry, he was Ultimate Fighter, right?
I don't remember. Since I really started paying attention like back in 2019, and he was an up-and-coming prospect. So I don't know if he's a tough product or not.
I think he's a tough product. Either way, I've watched this guy plenty of times. He's slower. He's methodical. He's going to control the ring. He's going to stand in the center, and he's going to kick the shit out of MVP's legs. And we mentioned before the show, you kind of are leaning that way where he gets just a less exciting, more technical decision here. Seeing MVP at plus money is hard for me to pass on.
Yeah, I agree. So for me, I agree 100%. I think this is both of these guys' fight to lose, right? You see a striker like Ian Gary. You mentioned the striker like Michael Venom Page. The fans are expecting fireworks here. A lot of times you get the complete opposite. I think you're going to get a really boring kind of back and forth technical fight. Trying to figure out MVP's movement, and he gets a technical decision via landing leg kicks. Similar to like what he did against Neil Magny, right? I mean, that wasn't a super action-packed fight. He just kicked the shit out of Magny's legs. He got a 30-27 unanimous decision. So,
yeah, I don't know. He was the Cage Warrior champion, is where he came from, but another Irish prospect, big name. I don't know, man. I'm going to go with MVP at plus money here. MVP's 22-2-0, way older than Ian Machado Gary is. However, they have it listed as a 5-inch reach advantage for Michael Venom Page. So dude's got some long arms, a little bit more experience in the game. I'm going to take MVP to give Machado Gary his first loss, but definitely going to have this one as a individual piece and not put it in a parlay. Just too much indecisiveness on where it goes here. So
I like MVP. I think his clear path to victory, if you're riding MVP, take MVP by knockout or TKO. I mean, we've never really seen Ian Gary's chin get tested. I think it was back at like UFC 285 was the John Jones Cyril Gahn card. They they fed Ian Gary a meatball and Song Kanan, and he got dropped in the first round. I don't know if the dude can take a shot. So MVP is a striker like he's never seen. I think that's good value.
Yeah, I MVP. I wish the line was out to see what he'd be by knockout, but the plus 120 line is interesting to me. Again, we're recording this Wednesday. I think by Saturday night, when this fight's about to go down, we could be looking at almost a pick 'em on this one here, depending on how the money rolls in. So I'll get MVP in early and maybe hedge it later, or I don't really know, but I like MVP here. So
it's both their fights to lose. I'm gonna ride with Ian Gary by decision.
Okay. I might go ahead and talk about what we said. I might even take an MVP decision, no bet, and ride that one out. That I could put in a parlay piece. I don't think Ian Machado Gary is going to knock out Venom Page. I'm not super familiar with his ground game, but I would assume these two are going to keep this one standing.
I agree.
So where else would you like to take us on this one? Ortega and Diego Lopez?
Well, no, so we're gonna skip over
guys, let's do one more, and then because we still gotta go through the SEC.
One more? Fuck, there's 3 good ones left.
Yeah, that's only the the main fight, the main event.
Give us like 8 minutes, and then I'll get off for SEC and let you guys riff SEC. Okay. All right, next one I want to take us to Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze. Tyler, I don't know if you have any feedback on this one. Roman Dolidze is moving up. He's normally a 185, or he's moving up to 205. Took this fight on short notice. Anthony Smith is not the guy you want on short notice. I think Dolidze's cardio is going to be an issue. I think his chin is going to be an issue. Anthony Smith's riding into this one as an underdog. Give me Anthony Smith at plus 115.
Yeah, I don't like taking guys on short notice. It's interesting to see a short notice guy as a favorite here. Both the same age of 35, both with the same reach. So I think I'll go ahead and ride with you here on Smith as an underdog. I like having a good dog on the card. So let's see if that cardio does affect Roman Roman, and see if that affects him later on in the fight. If his somewhat of a fight camp is able to pull him through here.
All right, let's move to Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopez. So this is the first time in Brian Ortega's career where he's at a BJJ disadvantage. Usually the guy, he'll just find himself in these crazy situations where he has an opportunity to win by submission and he somehow comes out with a victory. I'm a Brian Ortega guy. Guy's fought twice since 2022, both against Yair Rodriguez, had the shoulder issue. He's at a clear striking disadvantage against Diego Lopez. I'm looking for Diego Lopez to finish this round early, or finish this fight early. Give me Diego Lopez minus 150. I'm probably going to sprinkle something on him. Diego Lopez first round finish.
Okay, before the show, you asked me about this one, and I was misspoken. I also am on Diego Lopez here. 4 years to the younger, 3.5-inch reach advantage. Ortega having only the 2 fights in the last couple of years, the shoulder surgery. Go ahead and give me Lopez here, and if this one does get into a clinching battle, that BJJ advantage is going to fall into Lopez's favor, even though Ortega is kind of the more so the vet here. So I will also ride with you on Lopez. So let's get into our main event, which was thrown together. I mean, props to the UFC for even giving us such a great fight to be the main event on short notice. So we have Alex Pereira and Yuri Prohaskovic. Prohaskovic 2. It's the second fight between these guys. Prohaskovic is 5 years younger, an inch shorter, with a 1-inch reach advantage. This was an interesting fight, the first one. I'm interested on your take here, John.
So Prohaska has some striking, unlike anybody else in the UFC, right? He's got that karate style. He fights super straight up, hangs his chin way out in the air. And if you go back and watch the first fight, he gave uh, Pereira a tough time in the first couple rounds. I had Prohaska up on the scorecard until he got caught. I think we're going to see a similar result if Prohaska can take Alex to the ground. He's definitely has a clear ground advantage. Pereira's ground game is pretty one-dimensional. He really, once he gets down, all he can really do is defend. So if Yuri tries to mix it up, Pereira could be in trouble. But I just think when you have a striker like Alex Pereira with that patented left hook, and he's fighting a guy that fights with his chin way up in the air, and he has 5 rounds to knock him out, I think Pereira is going to land a shot. I don't see this going much differently than it did the first time back in November.
Yeah, Prohaskovic's gas tank in that one didn't look as good, especially with how he fights and that straight up style, swings wildly. There's a chance that he hits Pereira with a nuke and Pereira drops. We haven't really seen that. I'm going to take the champ here, but if Prohaska is going to win, it's going to have to be on one of those crazy fucking hands that he throws and catches him. If this one goes into the deeper water, I think it's going to just go even more and more in the champ's favor. So if Prohaska is going to win this one, like he's going to have to do it early, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we haven't really seen Alex's chin get tested at 205, right? I mean, Izzy knocked him out at 185, but I think the guy walks around at like 230. So he's cutting from 230 to 185. His cut isn't nearly as significant. That impacts your cardio, impacts your chin, ability to take a shot. Give me Pereira by KO TKO here.
I like it. All right, guys. Real quick, if you want to just throw a couple, mentioned the 2-legger that we already had with Boudet and Pfeiffer on that one. If you really like Gary or Page, you can go ahead and throw them in. I personally won't be, but Diego Lopez and Pereira here in the final main event, a 4-legger that is Pfeiffer, Boudet, Lopez, and Pereira is plus 399 on my books. Pretty good little 4-legger there. All right, John, are you staying with us here for NCAA football, or are you heading out of here, buddy?
I think I'm going to get out of here. NCAA, I'll hop on more during the season, but I'm from the North. We don't really give a shit about college football. Go Bills, baby.
So, John, before you go, give us your lock one more time.
My lock for this week is Akshay Bhatia, top 10 at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. I have it at plus 240.
All right. Thank you, sir. We will see you next week. Good luck.
All right. Peace out, brothers.
This episode of Show Me the Money is brought to you by Tavern Sports, your place to get fun sports content, sportsbook lines and parlays, and of course food reviews with Big E's Ballpark Bites. You can follow Tavern Sports on Instagram at Tavern Sports 2023, TikTok at Tavern.Sports, and Twitter at Tavern Sports 23.
All right, Josh, we got a stacked SEC slate. It's just the two of us here. Let's dive right into it. Georgia, not the defending champ this year, coming in with a 10.5 over/under, 15th ranked transfer portal class. They've got guys coming in from everywhere, most notably Trevor Etienne, the running back from Florida, losing quite a few guys to the NFL, and a couple guys in the transfer portal here. First ranked recruiting class with 5 5-stars, 19 4-stars, and 3 3-stars. They start off week 1 against Clemson in Atlanta. I think they handle Kirby Smart, or I think Kirby Smart and the boys handle Dabo Swinney and the guys early in the season, especially in the state of Georgia.
I agree. It's definitely something that if you look at me and tell me at midnight that Clemson won that game, one, it tells us how good Clemson's going to be this year. I don't think it's a free win by any stretch of the meaning of free. They're gonna have to show up and they're gonna have to play that game, and they're gonna have to play it really tough. That being said, I don't think they should lose it, but I mean, this is really a never say never against this Clemson team. We liked them when we talked ACC a few weeks ago. I'm 99.9% sure we gave this to Georgia. Like, I'd be shocked if we didn't.
I wasn't there that week, but I would assume you guys did.
Yeah, and then I mean, week 2 they get their really easy early game like you always get in the SEC and Tennessee Tech. Never fucking heard of them.
Yeah. It's worth noting here, Carson Beck, still the quarterback for Georgia, going against Clemson here. He lost a couple of his safety blankets in McConkey and Bowers, but they're going to have some guys that he's getting used to throwing to. And I think against Clemson there, the offense is going to be able to keep rolling efficiently enough to win this one. And then, of course, the Georgia defense is the Georgia defense.
I was just about to go into that. At the end of the day, they can start slow on offense. The defense will get them games. After that Tennessee Tech game, they go into Kentucky. I don't see that as anything that's going to really hurt them. First SEC game. No Devin Leary. Even if Devin Leary was still there, I don't think it would be anything to be scared of. But then week 4, they come into Tuscaloosa to go take on the new look Crimson Tide. What is the new coach's name? It's a guy out of Washington. I know that. I can't remember his name.
Kalen DeBoer.
Kalen DeBoer.
And it's going to be a new look Alabama team. I don't know what he's going to do with them, but
I'm interested to see if Milroe is going to be the de facto starter. I would assume he is.
He is. And I can see him being used a lot similar to Penix was.
Yeah, a little bit more movement.
A little bit more movement than Penix for sure. But the arm talent.
I meant from last year, just comparing him to himself last year.
Oh, yeah. But I think Milroe is more mobile than Penix was. I think we might see Milroe run the ball more so than we ever saw Penix do. Naturally, scrambling wise is different, but
so you have this. I'm sorry to cut you off. You have this highlighted, and typically, and this is on our rundown. Y'all can't see this. Typically, when we highlight something, that means we think it's a loss. What makes you think that?
So I highlighted this in the sense of we have to find 2 losses for them to go under, and they can only have 1 loss to hit the over. So this is a potential loss for them. It could be. You never know with Alabama, and especially in Tuscaloosa, it's going to be a harder game for sure.
I will say this is DeBoer's first SEC game. They do not have SEC the first 3 weeks. They start, and we're going to talk them later, Western Kentucky, USF, and then Wisconsin is their week 3 game.
Yes, it is his first taste of the SEC. However, I think for the sake of the conversation, if you're trying to find losses, this could definitely be one of them. If this was in Georgia, I would probably lean the other way. I'm not saying Georgia's going to lose this game, but it is going to be a tough one. Georgia got a rough road schedule this year. We can
we can jump ahead real quick just because they only have two more away games after this. And dear God, I mean, people gave Georgia shit last year for having a soft schedule. You can't do that this year.
Yeah, so what we're talking about, and we'll come back through the rest of the games, but they have to go into Texas and they have to go into Ole Miss. Texas is definitely more liable to jump them than Ole Miss is, but Ole Miss could surprise you, maybe.
I think Ole Miss is going to be a good team this year.
Yeah, you can't overlook Ole Miss, but it's worth noting that they have to play 3 tough environment road games, and they can only lose one of them to hit their over here.
Yeah, let's go ahead and circle back because after the trip to Tuscaloosa, they get Auburn at home. Being surrounded by Auburn fans, I haven't heard a lot of optimism about the team this year. I couldn't name a single player on the team this year. I couldn't tell you if the quarterback's coming back. I don't know much of anything about this Auburn squad.
Auburn played Georgia tough last year at Auburn. I don't think it'll be the same thing this year in Georgia. I think Kirby Smart's going to have the boys riled up for that one. Surprisingly, just as a hey, they played us too close last year. Let's show them what we're about at home this year. But there's a chance that if they go in and they dominate Alabama the week
They
before,
catch them
or
sleeping.
Auburn could potentially catch them sleeping. I'm not giving this to Auburn in any sense of the fucking word, but it could be a letdown spot if you overlook them, but I highly doubt it. Next, they have Mississippi State at home. Should be a easy dub for them there. Then they're going into Texas, like we said.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't give my piece on that. I think Texas is the national champion favorite, personally. I understand they have to find their way out of this SEC, which Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, and possibly even Tennessee could find their way into the playoffs out of this SEC. The SEC is absolutely stacked. I mean, it always is. It always has been. It always will be. But if we're going to give them a loss, I think it has to be to Texas. I think one of those teams goes 12-0.
Yeah. I'm okay with giving this one to Texas strictly because it's a long road trip for Georgia and tough environment down there in Longhorn Stadium. So keep Quinn Ewers and the boys. They're going to be jacked up for this one. It's going to be interesting. We're actually going to be talking Texas next, and they have a little bit different looking schedule than Georgia does. So going to be interesting to see how the legs are stacked up for each team coming into this matchup in week, what is this, 7? So the dead nut center of the schedule here. And then after Texas, they have Florida, and that's in Jacksonville. I trust them wholeheartedly in that one. Look for ETN to get a little bit of
I would
that.
just say be careful. Like, I think Florida's record is not going to reflect it, but they are a very good team this year.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but Georgia,
they may have the hardest schedule in the country. That's why I say I don't think their record will reflect it, but they're a very good team.
Georgia, however, is Georgia until proven otherwise. I will give them Florida, but you're right.
No,
Same
I agree. I would not take this game away from them.
However, Florida is sandwiched between two big games. Potentially catch Georgia sleeping and give them a little bit of a scare, maybe. Depending on how the trip to Texas goes, you never know.
I would even be less worried about Florida and more worried about Tennessee 2 weeks after that at home. I think that could be the scarier of the two right after big opponent games, or the 3 rather. But we already mentioned the game after Florida at Ole Miss. I'm really high on Ole Miss. They're going to be one of my teams this year. Jackson Dart coming back, a lot of his targets coming back. They lost their left tackle. We're going to talk about them more later, so I don't want to get too in depth. But I think Ole Miss is going to be very good this year.
I do too. However, it's hard to not give this one to Ole Miss. To Georgia over Ole Miss. And then they end the year, like Josh just said, with Tennessee, UMass, and Georgia Tech. So the number is 10.5. They can only lose 1. They have a couple landmines sitting in here we talked about with Alabama, Texas, and Ole Miss all on the road. And then there's some sleepy time games against tough opponents who could play you well depending on if you overlook them or if you're riding a big high from the week before and the guys don't lock in and just try to look past a team. I'm going to say it, and I'm going to take the under here. They're either going 12-0 or they're going 10-2.
10-2. I 100% agree with you. You said it earlier when I mentioned Florida kind of being a little bit of a scary opponent, that it's Georgia, and they're Georgia until they prove they are not Georgia. But we're not betting Georgia's win total on October 19th or November 2nd. I think that is one thing we overlook. They do get a bye week between Texas and Florida. I think that is big.
Yeah.
However, Carson Beck is currently the favorite to win Heisman. We mentioned him a few weeks ago when we talked Notre Dame and we talked Heisman odds, plus 750. I don't think Carson Beck is that good of a football player. I think he's fine.
I think Quinn Ewers is better off to win the Heisman. I think Fuck, we just talked
I
about
mean,
it.
even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jalen Milrose even 6. Jackson Dart 7th. In the odds right now. Will Howard, where did he go? He went to Ohio
Ohio
State,
State.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
like Carson Beck, I don't see him as a Heisman hopeful at the end of the year. I just don't. Prove me wrong, like make me eat my words, but you don't look that good to me.
I think he's going to put up good numbers because he's on a great team. But as far as like a standout Heisman player, I don't like him in that role. So I'm going to take the under. However, I stand on they're going 12-0 or 10-2.
I agree. 12-0, 10-2. I 100% agree. Bama, Texas, and Ole Miss is a hard draw. Also, Florida and Tennessee. You have 3 of the top tier in the conference. You're also in the top tier of the conference, and then you have 2 of the next tier. Just a rough slate for Georgia this year. They kind of deserve it after the cupcake schedule they had last year. Let's talk about my favorite to win the national championship and the SEC. Mentioned it earlier. Texas also 10.5. 6th ranked transfer class. They got a wide receiver from Bama, a safety from Clemson, and an edge from University of Texas, San Antonio. No one left this Texas team. Why would you? You're gearing up for a national championship run. The one kind of scary thing is most of their skill players, their top 2 receivers, their number 1 and number 2 running back, their number 1 and number 2 tight ends, all went into the NFL. Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat, 2 absolute dogs on the D-line, both went into the NFL. They have a lot of holes to fill, but at the end of the day, I think Quinn Ewers is good enough to get you somewhere.
And if he isn't, Manning's right there.
You got Manning, and he looked good last year when he played. 6th recruiting class, 4 5-stars, 15 4-stars, 3 3-stars.
I mentioned it a little bit while we were talking in the Georgia schedule. A much different look for Texas here. Week 1, Colorado State. Week 2 at Michigan. Gonna be a big game here. Certainly could be a loss. However, I think this being week 2, Texas is a little more put together than Michigan is. Michigan has a whole lot more holes they had to fill. A new coach coming in,
new staff, new coaching staff.
Well, I mean, a lot of them were there previously because he kind of just handed the keys over. So it's not a complete overhaul of the coaching department, but big game. Michigan's lucky to have it at home. The environment up there can get raucous, but I don't think any more so than Texas can get at any given time.
No, but I mean, the benefit of being in Texas is it's your crowd. You're not going to be seeing burnt orange. You're going to be seeing maize.
Correct.
They definitely could get got. I don't think they will. Michigan had a lot of their stuff, had a lot of their guys leave too, including the coach, including the starting quarterback, including one of the best running backs in the nation. Definitely could get got. I don't see it.
I'm going to highlight it as a potential because they can lose 2 here.
Yeah. I don't see 1. I don't see much else in their schedule, so if you want to highlight it, I'm fine. Because after Michigan, they host UTSA, followed by the meets, followed by University of Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah, dog walking both of them.
Yeah.
Mississippi State is not able to compete with them this year. Oklahoma lost
classic
their quarterback.
Rivalry.
Yeah, classic rivalry. It's at home for Texas. There's potential to get got in this game because Oklahoma is going to be up for it. However, I think Texas rolls. We talked about against Georgia. So, who did we give? We didn't really decide if we were giving that one to Texas or not.
I think we gave it to Texas when we were talking Georgia just because.
So if they beat Georgia, I think they beat Michigan. After Georgia, they have Vandy at Vandy, which that's not going to matter to them. That's going to be a fucking sleepy Saturday game for them. They have Florida at home, go on the road against Arkansas. They host Kentucky, and they go to Texas A&M. I think that you could say similar to Georgia, they're going 12-0 or 10-2. I think this is going over regardless. If they're going to lose one, it's going to be Georgia.
Yeah,
I think
I
they
don't
handle,
see Michigan getting them. I mean, it could be a snake in the grass. So could Oklahoma, but
but I
I
think Texas is high stepping too much this year for it. I'm going
agree.
to take the Texas over.
I like the Texas over. Like I said at the beginning when we started talking to them, they are my national championship favorites. They are my SEC favorites, so I will always go with them here. Next, team we've harped on a little bit already, Ole Miss, win total 9.5. And unlike the last few conferences, I just kind of grabbed the favorites. And then Florida at the end because I think they're such an interesting team this year. But we will be going in descending order of favorites on the Blue Book. Ole Miss notably had the number one transfer class, bringing in a lot of defensive help and some help on the in the wide receiver room. There were number one running back did leave. That is a big deal. They didn't really have. I put no notable NFL draft picks, but their left tackle did go to the NFL. So I just missed that one, I suppose. 21st ranked recruiting class, no 5 stars, 11 4 stars, 10 3 stars. I don't think that should be a big deal this year. I think they are playoff contenders. I don't think you're going to have too many freshmen starting on a playoff contender. I will take us through the first 3 or 4 weeks of this schedule. They open up August 31st versus Furman, hosting Furman at Ole Miss. I don't see that being an issue. September 7th, the week after, they host Middle Tennessee State. And it shouldn't be an issue, but Middle Tennessee State's one of those teams that just kind of gets people. They're kind of funky. They find ways into games they shouldn't. I don't think Ole Miss will struggle with them. They shouldn't. But it's football, and you have to play all 60 minutes between the lines to see who actually wins.
Middle Tennessee State ain't fucking getting these Ole Miss boys. Neither is Wake Forest. Granted, it's at Wake Forest in week 3, but it ain't happening.
No.
This first 4 weeks is going to be straight tune-up games. And I think Jackson Dart is going to light up scoreboards these first 4 weeks against Furman, MTSU, Wake Forest, and Georgia Southern. Week 5, however, they get Kentucky. Kentucky could potentially cause some problems. I don't think Kentucky's going to be great, but I think it's their true first test of the season. It's going to be the first team that they have that fights back. Do you have an opinion on Kentucky there?
No, I don't think Kentucky's going to be great this year. I don't think they're going to see the success that they've seen the last couple of years. A lot of departures, not a lot of replacement, high caliber replacement level players coming in. And Ole Miss, Ole Miss is lucky. They dodged Bama, they dodged Texas. They do get Georgia, which is pretty rough. But outside of that, they don't have any super hard out-of-conference games. Their schedule lines up to be a team in the mix at the end of the year.
For sure. The next 2 teams, South Carolina lost their starting quarterback. LSU lost their starting quarterback. However, I highlighted that at LSU because it is at LSU. Going to be a tough environment for them there. I don't know about LSU's schedule, but potentially a night game for LSU. Jackson Dart's going to have to be good in that one for sure. So,
yeah, there's a lot of talk about LSU this year. I don't really understand it. Maybe there's stuff I don't know about transfers and stuff like that. But definitely a lot of hype around this new look LSU team. They lost their number one, number 2 receiver. They lost their quarterback, as you said, Tyler. It just feels like a reload year for LSU for me.
Yeah, well, they have Garrett Nussmeier. He has been in the waiting in the wings behind Jaden Daniels for 2 years. Actually, he's been there for the 3 seasons, but it's his time to shine now. I think he's going to make the most of it. I wouldn't be surprised if LSU gets Ole Miss here in a potentially really high-scoring matchup. So next they have Oklahoma and Arkansas. Oklahoma's at home. Arkansas on the road. I think they're going to be able to navigate through that without a loss.
Yeah, we could look dumb. I don't know much about Oklahoma this year. Every now and then they look great, but they lost. You said right, they lost their starting quarterback from last year. He transferred out. So, and first year in the SEC, I think they're just gonna have to learn how to play SEC ball this year and figure out quarterback next year. Arkansas shouldn't be an issue, of course. Any given Saturday, who knows? But I doubt that Saturday.
Yeah, and then they have Georgia, which we've given them as a loss already. Um, Potential for Ole Miss, but I really doubt it. So I'm going to give this one as a loss to them.
Could be a good one. Could definitely be a good one.
Could be a good game for sure.
Especially this late in the season, it could differentiate the winner of the Heisman if Beck is looking good and if Dart's looking good.
It's going to depend on how Ole Miss's defense looks.
For sure.
So then they have at Florida, which you highlighted. Do you think they're dropping one to Florida?
The thing is, I mentioned earlier, Florida's schedule is so hard. They catch Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss. All of those in a row, except for Tennessee and Georgia. Kentucky's in the middle there. And they also end with Florida State. Sorry, just didn't scroll down far enough. But this Florida team, I don't think, if you watch them, they're not going to be a bad football team. If you only look at scores and at records, I think you're going to think they're a very bad football team. But I think that a lot of money is going to be able to get made on this Florida team's plus spread numbers all year.
Yeah.
And that being said, they have to get someone.
Yeah. It is Graham Mertz's sixth year. He's one of the most experienced quarterbacks in college football this year. But we kind of hinted at, like, their win total's 4.5. They're not going to get many people according to the books. This definitely could be one of them, but I don't know.
Even if you give them a loss, it's still to Florida. It's still only 2 losses. They still go over their 9.5 number, unless you feel a strong way about Mississippi State or Oklahoma.
I don't. I think Ole Miss goes over here, but I think at LSU and Georgia could be their 2 losses. If they're going to go under, it's going to be a game that they're favored in, that they lose for sure. So Josh stepped out for a second. So let's go ahead and head into Alabama. Also over under of 9.5. The 3rd ranked transfer class, headlined by Parker Brailsford out of Washington. He's an lineman that came down with DeBoer. They got a left tackle out of Texas A&M. They got a cornerback at USC. They lost Caleb Downs, Isaiah Bond, Des Ricks.
They lost a lot of guys. I mean, they lost a lot of receivers that were going to be running top lines this year. Nick left, a lot of people left. That's what happens when you lose the best coach to ever do it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be a different look, Bama, this year. But 9.5, let's dive into it.
Yeah, hosting Western Kentucky and then hosting USF. I don't see a struggle there. And I shouldn't see a struggle in week 3 at Wisconsin, but it's jumping to me.
So I said this to some Bama fans that I'm friends with down here. Wisconsin, they're not the best team by any means. Any other year, Alabama rolls this game, in my opinion. I still think Alabama wins, but there's a chance the Wisconsin faithful make this environment just super uncomfortable. Yes, Alabama plays in a massive stadium and they have a lot of fans, but Wisconsin fans are different. I think Bama wins this game for sure, but Wisconsin could be tricky maybe in the first half maybe, but going to be a big game. However, DeBoer's played in a lot of big games. The pressure's not getting to him. Milrose played in big games. The pressure's not getting to him. It's going to be how well put together this team is by week 3, and I think they're going to be in decent shape where then they get Georgia week 4, and I think they get the loss against Georgia.
Yeah, I definitely agree there.
I think that I said against when we were talking Georgia, it's a toss up. I think they lose to Georgia, but I would not be surprised if they beat Georgia here in this one.
You
So
wouldn't be
I don't know.
surprised if they beat Georgia?
I I mean, I would be surprised, but it being at home, um, I don't know. Kirby Smart's got a lot of experience over DeBoer, whereas in the coaching matchup, the Big Bad Wolf is gone for Kirby Smart and the boys. Granted, they've gotten the best of Alabama in the last few years. I think Georgia wins it, but Alabama having it at home definitely helps them. So
yeah, I mean, it definitely helps hosting Georgia. They got to go into Vandy after Georgia, which is going to be a good one to lick your wounds in if they do end up losing that game.
For sure. And then again at South Carolina should be another fucking tune-up game. Bounce back for the guys. Then they go into Tennessee, which
they've struggled against Tennessee the last couple years.
Yeah. Last time at Tennessee, the fucking goalpost got thrown into a river. So you never know. Tennessee's starting true sophomore quarterback who looked really great against Iowa last year, but that's not saying a whole lot. Yeah. It'll be his first taste of the limelight between Bama and Tennessee. A lot of hate that goes on there, but I think Alabama wins that game for sure. Then they get Missouri at home. Another one I think they win, but Missouri's good.
I don't think they win it.
Okay.
A lot of hype on Missouri this year. A lot of people are saying they have the two best receivers in the country, a good defense. They did lose their workhorse running back, which is pretty rough for them. They're returning their quarterback. I think this is just one of those weird years. It's kind of like, you remember Michael Sam? His final year at Missouri is like their first or second year in the SEC, and they put together like a surprising good season. I think Missouri's going to go on something like that again this year. I think if Bama's ever going to be bad, it's going to be in this transition year. I mean, Saban lost to UL Monroe his first season. So let's pump the brakes a little bit on the Bama hype this year, I think. I mean, it could bite me in the butt. I don't prove it to me. You have to prove it to me again now.
Yeah, so then they got at LSU, again, a tough one. LSU is going to be up for that game. But I don't know. I'm still on the, you got to show me you're different. Part of me is telling me it's different. Saban's gone. DeBoer's still a good coach, and they have a decent roster. There are a lot of holes to fill. If they're going to get God, I think it's early in the season rather than later. I think they can beat LSU, but it could be a slip here. The total's 9.5. Sounds like we're headed different ways here. I'm going to take the over. I need Alabama to prove me wrong. I don't see Alabama going 8 well, they got to go 10-2, which is going to be tough.
Yeah. I really do see the under here. I mean, you stopped at LSU. You didn't mention, Mercer's not anything to mention. They have to go into Oklahoma. And then, of course, they finish the year against Auburn. Auburn should have won that game last year.
Auburn should have won the game last year, but they didn't. That's life.
I'm on the under.
The under is probably the safe.
We have 5 highlighted.
Yeah, but I don't agree with some of your highlights. I'm going to take the over and probably be a mark for it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go under here.
Got our first NCAA Dukes up.
It might be. It's going to be interesting, but let's get into our last one, Mizzou here. Again, over under at 9.5. Here's my thing. So many of these SEC teams that play each other, 9.5, 9.5, 8 or 10.5. Some of these teams got to fucking lose to somebody. So,
but look at their schedule. They missed everyone except for Bama.
Yeah, So let's get into it. Mizzou over under 9.5. 14th ranked transfer class. Got it better on the O line and D line. No notable departures. They lost five defensive starters and a left tackle to the NFL though. 20th ranked recruiting class, 1 5-star, 7 4-stars, and 13 3-stars. I'm going to rattle off these first 4 weeks because they're not losing them. Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and Vanderbilt, all at home. The fucking Tigers are going to roll through them. Agree?
Yeah, no disagreement.
Gotcha. At Texas A&M could be a tough game here. I don't know a whole lot about Texas A&M here, but I know the environment could be difficult for Missouri here, and I wouldn't be mad giving them a loss to Texas A&M.
This next one's so weird to me. An SEC team going out to UMass.
Yeah, I don't know how UMass pulled that one off, but I think they're going to get smacked at home by Mizzou here.
As long as you don't bet on them, because they've won 2 games in the last 5 seasons, and one of them you were betting on against them, or something.
They've won a couple more games than that, but yes, I have been bad beaten by UMass before. So go ahead and give me Mizzou in that one. They have Auburn next. Is that at home?
I'm going to assume so, just because if it's not, then that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games on the road in a row.
Okay, so they got Auburn at home. Let's say either way, they have Auburn. I think this is a bit an interesting matchup. I do. I think this game's going to be lower scoring than what most people probably think.
I think Auburn can cover here, but I think Mizzou's going to be favored. I think Mizzou pulls it out.
I do too. Then they go into Alabama. You think Mizzou's winning that game? You said while we went through Bama's schedule. I think absolutely not. I'm giving Alabama the win here.
We can give the win to Bama just because, again, this Oklahoma team keeps popping up, and we keep being on the borderline of all these all these overs and unders, and we're counting every Oklahoma game as a loss. We could be marks overlooking Oklahoma here after they go into Tuscaloosa. Maybe it's a loss. I mean, the books see 2 to 3 losses here. 2.5 losses is the book's line. Maybe this is the second one. Again, prove it to me. You lost your quarterback. You're in a new, better conference. Maybe you get them, maybe you don't, but you got to go into Mizzou and get them.
Trying to find this for us here. Oklahoma's win totals at 7.5. So us giving them a few losses has not been a problem, according to the books. So definitely an interesting game. I think at South Carolina, at Mississippi State, and Arkansas should all be wins for them here. Mississippi State's win totals at 3.5, so I'm good with them losing to everybody else we've talked about beforehand. So
I like the over.
I do too.
I just don't see the losses.
If they're gonna lose, it's gonna be
A&M,
Auburn,
Oklahoma.
and A&M. Auburn, A&M, and Oklahoma, they'll have a loss in those 3. But again,
I don't think they're an 11-1 team.
No, God no. But that still puts them to the over if they lose to one of those 3 teams. I feel like I take the over on everything. I wouldn't be surprised if they go 9-3 here. I think this line's sharp.
I think it's a great line.
I think the line's sharp, and the SEC is going to be a monster that eats each other up this year with potentially. But I'll go ahead and agree with the over here because I only see one for sure loss at Bama. But again,
I think Missouri's going to surprise you in that one. I really do.
I still think Bama gets the win. But I think an A&M, an Auburn, or an Oklahoma jumps up out of the weeds and grabs Mizzou.
Probably. It could definitely happen. I've mentioned Florida a couple times. 4.5 is their win total. And the reason is they don't get too many cupcakes. But again, I think they're going to be a very good team. I think you can win a lot of money betting Florida this year. They had the 5th ranked transfer class, brought in some offensive and defensive line help. They brought in Cormani McLean, the cornerback out of Colorado that played opposite of Travis Hunter. They lost Trevor Etienne and an edge to the transfer portal. Ricky Purcell, sorry, their top wide receiving target. He left for the NFL last year. They are bringing in 2 5-stars and 12 4-stars. With the win total at 4.5, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a couple of those guys get into the mix this year. Definitely going to be a little bit of a rebuilding, retooling year for Florida here. But let's get into the schedule. Versus Miami, we talked this game a bit when we were talking ACC play. It's a very important game for both teams. If we want to kind of play the numbers, I'm okay giving the loss to them, to Florida here. But then after that, they get kind of their one cupcake in Samford. There shouldn't be an issue there. Then following that game, they host Texas A&M. So they have 3 straight home games to start the year. That's pretty advantageous for Florida here. Again, if I'm trying to be pessimistic, give this one to Texas A&M. I don't know much about A&M this year. But we'll just give it to them just for, like I said, the sake of being pessimistic. After that, they go into into Mississippi State. I think they can pull that one out. I really, really do. Again, I don't know much about Mississippi State. They looked okay last year, but Florida looked pretty decent last year too. Following the trip to Mississippi State, they do host UCF. We talked UCF a bit last week. I mean, we didn't talk their whole schedule, but we definitely did mention that they should be a half-decent team. They always get someone they shouldn't. I don't think this is going to be looked at as a game where they get someone they shouldn't, because I don't think they get Florida, but even if they do, I don't think it would really be, at this point in the season, a huge upset. So I'm okay giving this one to giving this one to Florida over UCF and continue to ride with the Gators. If the Gators are going to go over this number, they have to do it early in the year, because following UCF, they go into Rocky Top to play Tennessee. Of course, Tennessee lost a good chunk of their offense between the last two NFL drafts. I think going at Rocky Top, this definitely could be a night game. I want to give this one to Tennessee. I think Tennessee is going to be a pretty decent team this year. We're not talking them just because, I mean, the SEC is so absurd. We stopped at a win total of 9.5, not counting Florida. So I'm okay giving the away game to Tennessee, but then they get to host Kentucky. We've talked about Kentucky a good little amount. I don't think they're very good. They lost their quarterback. They lost their running back. They probably lost a handful of other guys that I just not notable enough for me to know of. So I'm okay giving Florida that win. That gives them 1, 2, 3, and 4 wins currently, going into probably the hardest 4 weeks anyone could draw up on a football schedule. They host Georgia. We talked this game a little bit when we talked Georgia, the first team that we talked about in this segment. I think this could be a snake in the grass game for Florida. I will give them the loss just because I'm not dumb enough to kind of give them the upset over Georgia, especially if Georgia's rolling at this point in time in the season. But I wouldn't be shocked if Florida does pull this out somehow. Following the Georgia game, they do have to go into Austin to face Texas. Again, I think Texas is going to be the best team in the country this year. I don't see yours dropping this one personally. Following the trip to Austin, they host LSU. I know there's been a lot of talk about LSU this offseason, but they have to replace so much. And LSU, yes, they don't rebuild, they retool. I'm comfortable giving this one to Florida. Maybe comfortable is not the right term, but it's definitely safer than some of these other games. Their final SEC game is against Ole Miss. Again, I think Ole Miss is going to be a good team. We talked about them earlier. I'm pretty sure we did kind of give Ole Miss a loss here, or I did at least. I don't remember if Tyler agreed with that. But then Florida finishes with Florida State. God, I wish I remember what we said about Florida State when we talked to them. I know they lost a lot. I remember talking that they lost a good amount of stuff. So, I don't know. Call this one a 50-50. Call the LSU game a 50-50. You have a win against Samford, a win against Mississippi State, a win against UCF, a win against Kentucky. They need to catch one of those two in the last 3 weeks to go over. It is Florida. They do have a good team. They could get Miami. They could get A&M. They could get Tennessee. I just don't think it's as likely as a few of these teams at the end of the year. I like Florida's over. Again, their record may not show it at the end of the year, but I think your money should be on them if you're riding them. I think they're going to be underdogs in a lot of their games. If you ride them on the spread all year, I think you're going to finish up money. That's going to do it for the football talk. Ethan's going to roll us into an ad quick, and then we will come back. I'm going to give you some locks.
Hey there, sports fans. Are you tired of the same old boring shirts? Well, we've got something exciting for you. Introducing the Tavern Sports Pocket Tee, where style meets passion for the game. Whether you're a diehard fan or just like the environment, Tavern Sports has got you covered, literally. The best part, because you're listening to Show Me the Money, you can use the code $$ to get 15% off today. So what are you waiting for? Head over to tavern-sports.square.site right now and elevate your game day experience. Tavern Sports. Beer, betting, sports.
All right, let's do the locks. Again, Clark's celebrating his birthday. We don't have a lock from him. And Cole is spending some time with his lady before he has to go on a business trip. So we totally understand them not being able to make it in. We thank John for filling in. He is going to be more of a regular, so we do have a new guy joining us. So for John's first lock, he gave it out earlier. He likes Batia to finish top 10 at plus 190. Tyler is also going PJ. He likes Ricky Fowler to finish top 20. And again, these are all with ties as we are getting these before the first shot is hit. Fowler is plus 170 to top 20. And I am also going to be riding the PGA's coattails this week. I'm going to take Cam Young in a neutered field, top 20, minus 140. I would consider going Kim. I know I said to fade him this week, but he is just outside of our perimeters at minus 170. I like this minus 140 number. Minwoo Lee at minus 120 could also be a good bet here. But again, as far as my lock's concerned, I'm going to go with Cameron Young. So, guys, we gave you some more futures to bet on as far as football. We talked some updates on MLB Rookie of the Year. We brought up some golf, closed out the NFL or the NHL season. Tyler and John gave you some great stuff on the UFC. I'm not a big UFC guy, but I think I could have pulled some winners out of there just listening to those guys. I feel like I learned quite a bit. On top of all that, you got our locks. You know our locks tend to pay. They tend to hit at a pretty good rate. So make sure you place those and make sure to show me the money.